By the end of this video, you guys are going to be able to install the 3D touch sensor from Geeetech to your Ender 3 version 2. Let's get into it. This kit comes with a bunch of mounting hardware for other 3D printers and a control board, but we only need this one. The first step in the process that we're going to do is we're going to attach the sensor to the mounting bracket using the two long screws, the nuts, and the washers. After assembly, it should look something like this. I personally mounted the screws facing down because if you put them facing up like the instructions want you to, it ends up blocking the holes that you need to use to mount this to the actual printer itself. At this point, we still have the sensor disconnected from the printer. I would remove the wire that comes attached because we were going to use the longer one later, and it's more difficult to do it later than now. Safety first. Always remember to unplug electronics while working on them. Next, we're going to mount the sensor using these two holes and the small screws. Okay, next we're going to uninstall the Z-axis sensor, and you can just leave it here unplugged, or you can completely remove the wiring for it. I'm going to leave it here unplugged, so that way in case the new sensor we're installing happens to fail, I've already got a backup wired in. In this clip, I left the Z-axis sensor connected and it threw an error code on our new bed leveler. I have also seen it give errors such as not going home correctly and also not allowing you to move the Z-axis in the controller. Now we are going to attach the long ribbon cable that came in the kit to the sensor. You want to have the brown wire facing towards the front of the printer, and I found it helpful to put a small bend/kink gently into the wire towards the sensor. This makes it a bit easier to get into the port. Next, remove your drawer so it doesn't fall out when we turn the printer over. There are 4 screws that we need to remove to get to the control board. The first is on the top of the printer next to the Y-axis rail, and the remaining 3 screws are found on the bottom of the printer. The one lowest shown is significantly longer than the other 3 screws, so pay close attention to where it goes. Once you get the screws undone, you're greeted by the control board, and I just let the panel hang since removing the fan wire seemed more dangerous than it was worth. Now you need to install the wires from the ribbon cable connected to the sensor. This particular sensor needs to be connected in the order brown, red, yellow, black, and then white, with white being closest to the front of the printer. After connecting the wires, I encountered a problem where the sensor seemed like it was working properly, but was printing way above the bed, much higher than I could correct with the Z offset. And I discovered that was due to one of the sensor wires not being quite completely connected, due to the fact of them not locking into place on the board. And so I corrected this issue with a bead of hot glue. I personally just ran the wire next to the cluster and zip tied it on the bottom of the printer, and I don't think the wire that we get with this kit is quite long enough to run all the way with the other wires and still reach the sensor at max height, so you can't run it in with the bundle like you can with other sensors. Now comes the fun part. We need to remove the SD card from the printer and then prepare it to format the firmware on the Ender 3. So because we are going to completely reformat this hard drive, the flash drive you pulled from your printer, you're going to want to back up whatever you have on it. I already have a backup made here of all these files, so I can go ahead and delete them. Sure you want to permanently delete these items? Yes. And it's deleting. Yeah, delete any of that. Doesn't matter. It's all going away. Okay, so we are going to open up the disk management tool, and it's built into Windows under the Create and Format Hard Disk Partitions label in the search bar. And once we get that pulled up, we're going to find the hard drive we are looking to format, which currently mine is 3D MSD or drive G. And we're going to come down to that one down here, and we're going to right click it, click format, FAT32, and the allocation size, we want that to be 4096. We're going to click that. And just to make sure it does everything correct the first time, we're going to do a long format and hit OK. And it lets you know that formatting this will erase all data on it. We've already backed it up, so that's okay. So let's go ahead and let it go. And it usually takes a handful of minutes, but I'll come back to you when it's done. Alright, now that we're done formatting, we can go ahead and look for our new firmware. To get the appropriate firmware for our new sensor on our printer, we're going to need to look at the Ender 3 version 2 BL Touch firmware on Google, and Creality's website is the first link that comes up. We're going to go in there, and now you need to find the firmware for your specific control board. I have the 4.22 motherboard, so I'm going to go with the most recent one, which is the one up top that ends in BL Touch. But if you have the 4.27 one, you need to go a little bit farther down. You can determine which motherboard you have by looking at it when you've got it pulled open, or you can look up online based off your model and serial number. But worst case scenario, if you install the wrong one, it's not a big deal. All that happens is you get a black screen when you're trying to install, and it just sits there forever. So it's really not a big deal if you get the wrong one. All right, and then we're going to go up into our downloads, and we're going to open the file that we downloaded. It is a zip file, so you're going to need some software to open it up. And once we've got it, the file open in your zip opener of choice, we're going to click onto the file, and we're looking for the .bin file. And so we're going to click and drag that over into your hard drive that was just recently formatted. And once it transfers over, we're good to go, and we'll go and put this back in the printer. The first startup with the new firmware will take a little bit of time with a black screen, and then it will show a loading bar. And once it's done, you will know you have the correct firmware if you have the new selection option of level in the bottom right corner. Before I transfer the new files over, I just wanted to make sure we had a good bed level test to test out the new, bed leveler. So I went over to Thingiverse and looked up bed level test, and I think I'm going to go with this one. And it looks like it's by Jay Koehler. Thank you very much for your contribution here. And I actually already have it downloaded and in my backup, so we'll head right back over there. Alright, and since we don't want it to try and reformat the firmware every single time, we're going to delete the bin file off of the hard drive. Sure you want to permanently delete it? Yes. Goodbye. And then I've got my backup I made prior right here, and it also has the new bed level test in it. So we're going to go ahead and copy this back onto the hard drive for us. And it'll take a little bit. Alright, now that we've got that completed, we can safely eject this hard drive and go back to the printer. Gonna turn the printer on. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do a auto home, and it should stop a decent ways up after the homing. That is normal with this sensor. As you can see, it stopped a decent ways above the bed at the home position. Now what you're going to want to do at this point is go into the move option and drop it down and do a manual bed level, and the mount below 0 on the Z axis is going to be your starting Z offset, when we do the actual leveling and first print. To find our Z offset, or at least our starting one, we're going to do an auto home, in which I've already done, and if you saw, it started off at about 13 or something like that. And I'm going to start moving down the nozzle to find generally where my starting offset's going to be. Now, I've already done a full manual bed level on this whole bed. I'm just doing this to show you how I came across what I did. And so I'm dropping it down, and notice that right about -1.6 is right where it just starts to catch the paper, right where you want to start your print. And so that means that my negative offset for future prints should start at -1.6. And then you can fine tune it from there, but that's a great starting point. Now that we have our Z offset set, I'm going to go ahead and run the auto level function. I printed a few of the lines off the bed level test, and it appears that my Z offset could use some fine tuning, but I feel as though as an overall, the sensor is pretty much good to go. So I think that's going to be it for today. If you guys found this video helpful, if you could please, give it a like, possibly even give me a subscription, that'd be great. I do tech unboxings and, just kind of overall tech review. So have a good one and see you guys next time.